Okay, you're running a title report, you're looking at title records, and the subject or notation of CCR comes up in your records or even in your real estate conversations. No, we're not talking about Credence Clearwater Revival. Hi, this is Dave at TitleSearch.com. CCRs are an important part of property records, especially when it comes to a planned development or a condo association. It's a declaration of the underlying structure of that development. It stands for, as we know, covenants, codes, and restrictions. It actually, those three words are very descriptive. It's covenants, what you have to do as a property owner, codes of conduct on that property, and also restrictions, what the land is to be used for. It may regulate a property more than any lien or deed or mortgage. In many cases, a title search request isn't to include CCRs. And if a property is going to be purchased by a person, knowing what those CCRs entail might be of very important interest, and we'll get to why in a couple minutes. It's a lot of paperwork. A typical CCR declaration may be 100 pages, 150 pages, and some counties charge $100 or $1 or $2 per page to pull copies of a document. So there may be other ways to get them that are less expensive, and we'll get into that as well. The CCRs are originally established by the developer who builds out and structures that development. It's a condo association. It may be a planned unit development with standalone houses. It may even be a high-rise with flat apartments in a condominium type ownership. It does things like establishes the common areas, what are owned by the unit owners, what common areas for parking or laundry or pool are included. It tells property owners and their guests what they must do and what they can't do. As a property owner, you might be required to, let's say, keep up the appearance of your property in a certain way. You might be restricted from, let's say, painting your house a certain color. So it's going to have every very specific requirement listed in these CCRs. And it's very detailed, these CCRs. It also has a protocol for assessments, so that if there's a common area that's a pool and that pool needs to be resurfaced every 5 years, it gives a protocol for assessing all the unit owners to fix that pool or to repair things or to update and maintain different items. It's also important to look at that CCR to see if it requires for reserves, meaning that when that pool needs to be resurfaced, does that money get pulled from the owners then? Or do the owners have a reserve that goes in every month for, let's say, 5 years, so when the pool needs to get done, that money's already accumulated? And as a property owner or potential owner, you want to know if you're paying in arrears or paying in advance for those things. If you're paying in advance and you sell your property the day before the pool's going to get done, well, you have an accrued credit into that CCR association that maybe the next owner wants to be aware of. That's a selling point for that next owner to know that it's paid for already. So that assessment and reserve structure is important to know about. It doesn't have information on the HOA corporate operations. That's in the corporate bylaws. That's a separate thing. So how do CCRs become changed? If you have a couple hundred unit owners and they decide, you know what, these codes and restrictions don't match our interest in the property anymore, how do you change them? Most CCR documents require a supermajority to change anything substantial in the records. It may be a 75 or 80% vote, not just 51%. To change anything substantial in the records. Some changes might not be able to be made at all, especially if they go against codes, city permit planning operations. You can't change those things at all. Here's a couple examples of things you may want to know about in restrictive covenants. Some developments don't allow things like to park a pickup truck in your driveway. If you have a pickup truck, it has to fit in the garage. Well, if you have a pickup truck, and let's say it's a Ford F-350, dually diesel, if it doesn't fit in your garage, you can't put it in your driveway. What you going to do with that? And if you're buying a property in an HOA that has that kind of restriction, you might want to know about that before you buy several $100,000 property, and now you have your $50,000 truck. You don't know what to do with it. Some have restrictions on rentals. You may not be able to rent your property. Maybe only a certain percentage in that complex can be rented, and you have to wait until the percentage goes down. A lot of, especially condominium complexes, have restrictions on window treatments, that the outside surface of any window treatment, whether it's curtains or blinds, all have to be white. They don't want to have pink and all these different colors when you're driving down the street. So those are all important things to know about before you get into buying a house. One of the other things we get into with investigations and security is that there may be a requirement to have an HOA or identification sticker on your vehicle to park in the development or to go through the development. We find that problematic because if the sticker has an identification of that development and you go park in the parking lot somewhere at work or in a shopping center, anybody who goes by your car now can see where you live. Where they otherwise might not be able to do that. They know at least the development where you live, and they may wait for you outside if they have some problem with you. You cut somebody off in traffic, they follow you to a parking lot, they look at the sticker, you live in, Oaks Landing, and then they're going to track you down to Oaks Landing. So if it does have a requirement for stickers, there's ways to get better operational security about that. Maybe put it on a piece of glass and just put the glass in the window rather than putting the sticker in the window. Just a side note. Enforcement of these codes and restrictions is usually by the HOA. They may have a security person. They may have neighborhood watch that does that. It may have fines. It may have penalties if you don't abide by the restrictions. You may be able to negotiate exemptions if you have a hardship. If maybe your vehicle you owned before and you want to park it in the driveway, you may be able to negotiate an exemption, especially if the exemptions are illegal or if they're against laws that have been passed since the CCRs were issued. Sometimes it may be decades prior. So take a look at those CCRs, see if they match current laws, see if they match what your needs of the property are. More importantly, if you're going to make a decision about contemplating an interest in real estate, buying it, owning it, living in it, or even lending on it, you may want to know what the CCRs say. It may cost a little extra to get that big stack of documents, but it might be worthwhile to see what you're getting into with a property development either before or after you purchase a property.